Hello, everybody. This is Erica.
This is Shari.
And this is April, and you are now listening to Three Psychs and a Mic.
Just as a disclaimer, although the contents of this show may be educational and therapeutic in nature, this should not be considered a replacement for therapy with a licensed professional. If you would like more information on how you can find a therapist in your area, please contact us on social media. All right. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of Three Psychs and a Mic. How's everybody doing?
What's up?
Hey, I'm cold.
It's a cold.
Yeah. It is.
It's pretty nasty outside.
It is very gloomy. It is gloomy.
Mm-hmm.
But I got sunshine in my heart today, y'all.
Oh.
Child, I'm glad one of us is carrying it along.
Oh, look, I have to lie to myself sometimes to make it through.
It's all right.
Because I really have been miserable. But
Oh.
No, I totally
give
understand
myself a
that.
pep talk. Pep talk.
No, but doing pretty good today. Today is the day of love.
It is. It is Valentine's Day 2021.
Yeah.
Oh, we made
Happy Valentine's Day, y'all.
I hate Valentine's Day.
Oh,
Yeah,
Lord.
girl.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think love is a great
Mhm.
thing, but just what it's turned to and how like people expectations get set up, it just becomes a whole nother thing.
Expectations.
Yeah. So even back in the day, like even when I've been in a relationship, out of relationship, it's just been such a like, what do you do? What are we gonna do? But I do like giving out those old school Valentine's cards. I've still like doing that.
Yeah.
Oh, cute.
Yeah.
When they on sale for
Because,
70%
you need
off.
love all the time.
Absolutely, and they'll be on sale
Yes.
soon. So even better.
Happy day of love.
Happy Day of Love. And speaking of love, we have the lovely Miss Tamika Staley as a guest for today. So we have brought along a friend to the show today to help us talk about lots of different things that I think you guys are going to be interested in. I'm going to let Tamika tell us all about that later. But first, I just want to give her an opportunity just to say hello, introduce herself. Miss Tamika, you have the mic.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm definitely glad to be here. And I am a divine Black woman who believes in
Yes.
equity and justice and radical healing. One of the ways in which I embody those things and implement those things in my life and my work is through being a sex educator and providing decolonized comprehensive sex education, digital content, curriculums, and workshops for 12 to 19-year-old youth and their parents. So I run a youth organization called YASE LLC, and that stands for Youth Affirming Sex Education. It is a organization in which I give workshops and curriculums to youth so that way they can have the tools that they need to affirm themselves in their communities. And what that looks like for me is making sure that they have medically accurate information about sex and things that can happen around sex, including STD prevention, pregnancy, reproductive justice, and also letting them know that sex is pleasurable and a source of healing too when navigated in the ways that are right for them, the time that is right for them, and when it is consensual, right? So I think that a lot of the times, and in most schools across the country, especially in South Carolina, there are actual laws and policies that prevent sex education being taught in a way that is outside of a white Western standard, so Black kids and LGBTQ plus kids don't know how sex looks for them, right? And are afraid to engage, not even just sexually, but having intimate relationships with people that are healthy, even that are non-sexual, just healthy relationships in general, and healthy relationships with themselves and their own bodies, right? And I think that that's important. Sexual health is health, and there's a way that creates a well-rounded adult and a thriving adult, right? Because if you're well in your own self, in your own body, then that does help you to have a better career, a better life with kids, if that's what you desire, a better work relationship with people, because you're in tune with your own body. And it also is a sense of healing from different sexual traumas. That's also a part of sexual health. And that's something that I talk about, sexual trauma informed care, what ways that we can address the trauma that we've experienced or the sexual violence that the youth have experienced, so that way they can heal from those things, because those things can show up later on in life in other areas and create disruptions and even can form addiction. So sexual health is encompassing of all of those things. And I am here to make a stance and really decolonize the ways in which we have been suppressed sexually in the society, the ways in which our rape culture, because we live in a rape culture, has impacted us and our youth negatively in the ways that they engage in sex and the way that they engage in sexuality and intimacy, right? Which is not always about the act of sex itself. So yeah, I'm loving the work that I do, and I'm always available for booking organizations, individuals, and it takes a village truly to do this work and to embrace, so that way we can continue to perpetuate the positive things around sex and sexual health, and have equitable access to sexual health, right? Which includes condoms and different other forms of contraceptives, like the internal condoms, dental dam, things of that nature, abortion rights, what does that look like, especially when it comes to teens. So, yeah.
So I have to tell a quick story of how I first met Tamika, and she may not even remember it. So, when I first moved here, I would see pictures of this, beautiful woman on some of the restaurants or the lounges downtown, and it was like spoken word artist Tamika Staley, and I just remember being captivated, like, wow, this girl is beautiful, like the haircut, makeup, on point,
beautiful.
And so randomly one day I'm at Whole Foods shopping and picking up stuff, and on my way out I needed to use the bathroom, and I have my groceries in my hand, and I'm like standing in front of the door, like, I don't want to take my groceries into the bathroom with me, but I also don't want to leave them out here. And who walks out but Tamika. Yes. And she goes like, do you want me to hold your stuff? And it was just such a sweet thing. And I said, sure. She had never met me, didn't know who I was.
Oh, that's so awesome.
And yeah, so that was my first time actually meeting her.
That's hilarious. I think the first time I met you, Tamika, we were like twerking together at Karina's birthday party. I was like, oh, yes, we got the same dance energy. Here we go. I miss dancing so much. Well, let's jump into, since we were talking about just love and Love Day, I want to check in because I've been seeing on the internet that not just Valentine's Day, but Black Love Day. So today is Black Love Day, and it's a term that was coined back in 2010 as Black Love Day today. And so I just wanted to check in with you guys because there's been a lot of buzz around Black love and what Black love is. And so I just wanted to check in to see, like, what do you guys define as Black love? Like, how is it different than just love?
So when I think of Black love, to me, Black love is restorative. Like, yeah, I think Black love is restorative. I think it's different. I think it needs two Black people for it to be considered Black love, because I think it encompasses pieces of Blackness that others would not understand. So it's like when you've had a rough day and your partner just gets it, you don't have to explain it. Kind of being uplifted in that way too.
Yeah.
So just feeling restored, rejuvenated as a result of being loved properly.
I like that. Like the first thing came to me was corrective. Because for me, it was like feeling real Black love. It felt like a correction of all of the bad or unhealthy relationships that I had in the past. And, finding that real, true, solid Black love felt like this is my corrective experience. Yeah.
I think for me, when I think about just like Black love, I often don't think about it in the romantic sense. And that could be because y'all know, I think on every episode, I'm like, I'm single. So, I move away from just romantic love. And I think a lot about like the unspoken ways that Black people love each other. So like the glances that we give each other when we're in the store, or, like the head nods, or just the way that like when Black women are in the bathroom at the club and they be like, girl, go boots. And you know exactly what that means, just like that's what I think about when I think about Black love. It's just like those unspoken, those silent ways that we love each other in a space that doesn't love us. And we don't even have to say a word, but that it's there. And that's how I define it.
I would define Black love as a radical act of resistance. Black love is revolutionary because it's so unique in all of the many ways that it can show up. It's not a monolith. And I think often we see that in media and on social media. And, because our society is very heteronormative, we see the Black woman, Black man, straight couples, married kids, and all those things are beautiful. That is a way that it can show up, but that's not the only way that it can show up. And that's what I love about it. Like it can be presented in so many different ways. And Black love is also can be singular. Like you are your first and number one Black love, like I'm my forever Black love, regardless of if somebody is there with me or not. So I love that it is so unique in that way. And the fact that it does break barriers, because when you do have one Black person in a room loving on themselves, breaking generational cycles of trauma, that's already powerful in itself. A lot of things get done, but if you put two Black people together that's loving on themselves and each other or more, we have people who are non-monogamous and polyamorous and polygamous and polyandrous, so if you get more folks loving on themselves, they know who they are, they're free, that's some radical things gonna go on, on a policy front, on an activist front, on a healthcare front, because there's so many ideas coming together, and we know what oppression looks like. And we also know how to resist against that. We know how to get, past those things. And whatever I don't know, you can make up where I lack, and we are able to put our voices together and put our heads together to really advocate for ourselves. And Black love, that's why it's so powerful and explosive in that way. So yeah, Black love is everything, it's vital to our being, and it shows up how you want it. You're in control of what Black love looks like to you, but definitely
absolutely
black folks, that's the number one thing. It has to be one or more Black people in some sort of relationship that has some common goals and similar thoughts on what thriving looks like to them. So yeah, that at the basis of it, that's what Black love requires for sure. So yeah, I'm with it.
And many of the romantic or platonic, like there's just been so much, like when you are in survival mode to just live, it's hard to think about romantic or just love in general. Like even when you think of Maslow's hierarchy, like you got to get safety first. And so in a world that is unsafe, like having that Black love is our protective factor. It keeps us sane, whether it's the saying A in the club or the love in the bathroom, or just, someone saying, oh, you look nice today. Like, I love your smile. Whatever those things are expressions of love, I do think it keeps us going when everything is like trying to make us stop.
Yes. That's what's up. Yeah. And I think that's something good to like think about because you see it everywhere. You're like Black love goals, Black love this, Black love that. And I think for us to define what that means for us, like Tamika, I love that you said it's self-love. It starts there. Like, what does that mean? What does that look like? Defining that and then moving forward into like being able to say, okay, well, how do I show that to other Black people? Is so important.
One thing you made me think of, Tamika, then we'll move on because we can talk. This could be a whole
segment show in itself is when you said
Okay.
self-love, it immediately reminded me of my first time in therapy. And I was talking to my therapist about a relationship I had no business being in. And I was beating myself up more for being in it than the bad things that happened. Like, I just was like, how, I can't believe I was so stupid and blah, blah, blah. And she asked me, well, what, you got something from it? Like, what void did that relationship fill for you? What void did that person fill for you? And I always think about that in regards to self-love, is that I was looking outside of myself to feel something inside of myself. And so even, I'm single as well. Anytime I found myself like, man, I wish I or it would be nice to have, I do it for myself. If I want flowers, I get flowers. If I want to travel, if I want to go to the beach, I go to the beach. And I think that is also when thinking of self-love, because around, this time of the year, you are inundated with examples of romantic love and all these gestures, and you can very easily fall into that comparison trap and thinking like, man, I don't have. So going back to that void, and what I have found that has been amazing for me is just do what I want. Like, if I want something, I go out and get it. I don't have to wait. Yeah.
I love that.
So that was great.
Oh, yeah, it's my good question of the week. Bam.
All right. Well, I'm excited about today's topic. We have an amazing guest, Tamika Staley, who is going to talk to us about sex positivity, her work as a sex educator, and how we can just be more sex positive and better educated around ourselves and as adult beings who some may be sexually active, or you just need to know, even if you are not. So Tamika, can you tell us about yourself? Tell us about your work, about Yase. What was your inspiration into getting into this work?
Yeah, for sure. So Yase came about last July. So we'll be 1 year old in a couple of months. It is so wild to think about that. Yeah. So
Yes.
we became official last summer. And it was something I just knew I needed to do. I've always wanted to make an official organization, official business out of my passion and knowledge for sex ed. And I've been in this field since I was a teen. So I've been in sex health since my 10th grade year in high school. Yeah. So it's always been a passion and interest of mine. And I've done stuff over the years, just volunteer based, doing certain workshops on college campuses. At the college that I went to Coker College, now Coker University at the time. And yeah, I just was like, at some point, this has to be bigger than this. And just school kind of was like that, standing in the way. So after undergrad was grad school, and went through that for what seems like so many years. And I finally graduated grad school last May. So I was like, okay, now is the time to actually make it official.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so thank you. Yeah, and because my degree is in social work, I knew I had so many different ways that I could go. And I knew that sexual trauma-informed care was my base for my degree. So, and that's also something that falls under the umbrella of sex health and sex ed. So yeah, all that really kind of just aligned for me, that I had the passion and the experience and the knowledge in order to, and I love working with young people. I've always worked with youth, even as a youth, kids that were younger than me. I always work with kids, and I just love it. They're my favorite population to work with is teens, and even younger than that, elementary school, middle school age. I was teaching a group of middle school girls last year before the pandemic hit. So yeah, I just knew, like, all of that combined, I had to make something big to try to the best of my ability to, before I leave this earth, to create a consent culture, because we live in a rape culture currently. And I just saw the impact that was having on young people as I was teaching these workshops here and there. They would come up to me and just, tell me how much I helped them, or tell me how much they felt comfortable to talk to me. A lot of my students over the years were pregnant at a very, very young age. I had a group of girls that 12, 13 years old, exploring sexually and just not knowing what to do. Guys too, I have some non-binary students and some LGBTQ students that just did not even have the language for what sex and intimacy look like for them, because they don't teach, sex ed in schools in the inclusive way that includes LGBTQ plus teens. So yeah, I just knew that there was a need to be filled for Black students specifically, and those students that just nobody wanted to work with, quote unquote. A lot of my students, they come from the streets, what I'm saying? They're in foster homes. They have all these battles against them that they don't even have the time, some of the time, to even think about how to engage safely. But, sex is a part of life, and they are engaging, and sex is a healing tool. And it's something that they do need to know how to explore so that way they can become healthy adults. So yeah, I know I needed to do that. It's a part of health. Like sex health is health, so I knew that in order to create adults that's going to make this world a better place and thrive, and to also help them, I needed to create a space for them. So yeah, that's what pushed me for sure. It's my babies. I call them my babies because I don't have kids and I won't be having any. I am the forever cool auntie and cool teacher. So that's my role for life. So yeah, I love it.
I love it. I tell people I'm a great godmother. Amazing. I'm an amazing auntie.
Right. I'm the best auntie ever. Yeah.
Nice. Tamika, you mentioned, how, a lot of times the young people will come up to you and, talk to you about how, like they enjoyed like listening to you and they felt comfortable talking to you. Why do you think people are so uncomfortable talking about sex? Young people and the adults who are supposed to be talking to the young people, about sex. Why do you think there is this discomfort and just timidness around having those conversations?
Well, I think it's because of the way that our culture is designed. It's intentionally designed to make people sexually suppressed. That is definitely by design. And there's many reasons why. If you want to talk about the religious aspect of it, and a lot of conservatism is included in that. A lot of racism and homophobia and sexism, patriarchy, all of these things, included to suppress certain groups of people from, having pleasure and having pleasure in a way that they want. This is a individualist society that we live in, individualist country that we live in. And so anytime the individual, the most powerful individuals have an idea about what something should look like, those ideas are forced upon the rest of us. And and sex is no different, so for, modesty culture, is kind of ingrained in us from birth, especially for Black non-men. It's like, you have sex when you're married and you have sex for babies and that's it, and somebody decided that somewhere, some old white man, I'm sure, somewhere decided that that's how it's supposed to be. And and if you've been taught that, it's a conditioning, you've been taught something over and over and over, and then you see images and hear words and see signs that reinforce that idea, naturally you're going to internalize that and play that out in life. But as we've seen, what fits for some of us does not fit for all, and it has become very toxic and detrimental, and we're seeing the impacts of that. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that's why people are so uncomfortable about it, just because they've been told to be uncomfortable about it. It's plain and simple, So I'm trying to break the mold and help people to unlearn, to know that, you can do things on your terms, and you have to talk about it. If you don't talk about something, you're not going to have the right solutions and answers to things, and you think that we would get that by now, to say, hey, it's a lot of messed up things going on around sex, whether, it's so many things that can go really bad with sex, but so many things can go really great too. But you have to have those conversations, it's just a thing. But yeah, the uncomfortableness is there definitely by design. And it has to also be intentionally undone because it was intentionally put there. So that has to be a choice
Absolutely.
For adults first to make for themselves, because there's a lot of adults that, like you said, don't even want to talk about it and very uncomfortable about it. But they have to kind of set that example so they can also talk to their children and the children that are around them, that they're role models for, that they're mentors for, and there is an age appropriate way to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it makes me think, like, when you talk about, the difficulty with people even having those conversations and how it starts with communication, when we talk about just having healthy sex positive identities and relationships with one another, it's so hard when you said before, people don't have the language. Kids don't have the language. Adults don't have the language to even talk about sex in a way that is positive and in a way that is healthy. And so my question for you is, how did you find your voice on this topic? How did you start to give your voice to yourself in order to be able to give it to others?
I found my language because someone actually helped me. Yeah, I actually had a model for what it looks like and what the possibilities were. When I was in 10th grade, I met a woman named India White. I'll never forget her. And she worked with an organization called the South Carolina Contraceptive Access Campaign at the time. And it was basically a campaign to teach and encourage and educate teens on safe sex, healthy reproduction, reproductive rights, condom usage, things of that nature, on contraception. So it's something now, I don't even know how I even met her, but I basically was shadowing her for a period of time. I wanted to do some volunteer work, and I just came across, I don't know if I might have ran into her through another organization that I was doing. Yeah, so I signed up to shadow her with this particular campaign, and she would do monthly meetups with a group of teen girls that were pregnant. So that was like one of the tasks that she did in this position with the campaign. So that was like her role. And so I just shadowed her every month, going to the sessions with her. And there were other teen girls that were like in schools in the same district as me, didn't go to the same school as me, but went in the same district as me. Same age, like Black girls that just was like me, you know what I mean? Like they just, yeah. So, and it was refreshing to see. And I had never seen that before. I had never seen somebody talk so openly about sex. I could just see like how they lit up when she came in the room. She was very open with them, gave them resources for jobs and resources for aftercare, research, all kind of things. And then just kind of poured into them and let them know that even though, what they thought was a mistake, getting pregnant as a teen, that they were still worthy and of love and joy and happiness, and that it's okay to have sex if that's what you want, if at consenting age, you just have to, adjust the way that you do it so that way you can avoid pregnancy if that's not what you are ready for. It's not what you can avoid, to the best of your ability, STDs. You can, try to be, put some preventative methods. So just like letting them know that it wasn't that the sex was not the bad thing, because they were all just so shamed. They just felt so much shame and so much guilt around it. And I had never had that, I didn't have like in-depth sex talks as a child. I had the standard birds and the bees talks, which was good. My mom always told me like, if you're ready, to do that, just let me know. We'll go to the clinic. They'll say that. But I was like, I don't know if my mom would have really did that. I never tried it, but I'm sure she would have though. She's a woman of her word. But it wasn't in depth. Like I didn't have in-depth conversations, and religion played a big part of that. And definitely my dad, I could never talk to him about that. Like I would just be mortified to ever have that conversation. So I was, it was very much like non-existent for me to talk. But I had so many questions about sex, and I started feeling urges very early on. I started masturbating at 9, you know what I mean? So, and I would sneak like my dad's porn tapes out his closet, stuff. So, but I just didn't have nobody to talk to about that. Like I could talk to my parents about that. Definitely couldn't talk to my older brothers and sisters. They wouldn't understand. They, would be mad, and I knew that I would get in trouble, So when I met Miss India, I was like, wow. So this is, and she answered a lot of the questions that I had been, wondering. I was 9, and then when I met her, I was in 10th grade. So you can imagine like the long gap that I had, just questions and just, so yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because a lot of people, I don't think understand that. I think people think that the hormones kick in at puberty, but you've got your first set of hormones, those androgens that start around that age, around 9, 10, that, that's the first surge. And so I don't think people normalize that, we're going to explore those things. And a lot of probably young people, masturbated at a very young age and never felt comfortable enough talking to anybody about it, because knowing how, standoffish people are about even talking about sex or anything related to sex, it makes it very almost wrong or dirty that you're doing something that's actually very natural, and you don't have control over that. This is your body actually preparing you for that next surge of hormones that's going to come.
Yeah, that's puberty. So true. And it's healthy too. So and that's what I was taught, through that experience, shadowing Miss India. So yeah, she helped me get the language for it. And I just fell in love with the profession. I was like, I didn't even know that people could even have a job where they actually talk about sex, and get paid for it. That was also mind blowing to me. I'd never seen that. It was just not a thing. So right. Yeah, that's what helped me. So I wanted to be somebody else's Miss India, one day. And so yeah, now we here.
Here we go. It started. But no, I think even in that story that you're telling, says a lot about the way in which we define sex as young people and how that impacts how we define sex as adults, right? So hearing you say I would sneak those tapes, but I didn't want to say anything because at that age, sex equaled trouble, right? I was going to get in trouble. Sex equals shame. I would have been ashamed of having those conversations. And I think for young people that happens, or we get those messages so often that as we become adults, we don't have anything or anyone there to help us undo those messages. And especially as a Black woman, I can speak for myself around saying, I had to intentionally go in and say, why are you having these thoughts around sex and shame? Why are they in the same boat for you? And being able to think about where those messages came from and how I continued to carry them as an adult and how that impacted or hindered my ability to have healthy sex relationships. And so, I definitely think you said a word right there.
Absolutely. One of the terms that, kind of kept resonating as you were telling the story about, kind of the role model that you mentioned was sex positivity that, we kind of hear. Can you kind of describe or define sex positivity? And then how would you suggest people start a journey, towards sex positive thoughts, behaviors, things like that?
Right. And I love that you asked me that question because I get that question pretty often and I have a different answer every time. One day I'm going to come up with a solid, just one answer. But then I think that's another thing that I'm even kind of reteaching and unlearning myself is that it doesn't have to be the same answer because there isn't just one answer. So, I have to even check myself with saying that. And so for me, sex positivity is one, consent. That's just the basis of it. And not just consent in asking a person permission to touch them or be in their space, but giving yourself permission to explore what sex is for you. That has to be at the core of sex. Because I know there's a lot of definitions and images of sex positivity, floating around the internet. And a lot of those things are great, but it doesn't always have to be this, one particular kind of way, and it doesn't always have to be something tangible and physical, but it definitely at the core for me has to be you giving yourself the permission to explore outside of what you've been taught. You just have to have the willingness to say, I know I've been taught a certain kind of thing about sex, but let's go deeper. Let's figure out if what I was taught really works for me. If what I was taught is accurate, because that's also a thing. It's some stuff that's just fact and fiction, it's a lot of opinions around sex that we could debate, but some stuff is this is not debatable. You just got to know the facts. You got to know the truth about that, so, but some people just are not willing because they know that if they do more digging, then they're going to be met with challenging their beliefs. And that is scary. That could be very traumatic for some people to have their beliefs challenged and to also feel like, oh, dang, everything I've been taught is a lie, you know what I'm saying? Or to feel like the bad guy because they've been doing or saying a certain kind of thing that doesn't quite have the positive impact that they might have thought it had. So yeah, you definitely sex positivity is really just giving yourself the permission to do as you feel, you know, and have more autonomy for yourself to explore further. And sex positivity is really just doing what you feel is good, like just doing what feels good to you, what is pleasurable for you. You know, that is at the basis of it, you know, in a nutshell. So if that means doing the busted challenge, you know, online, or doing the silhouette challenge and, you know, and getting naked and shaking some ass, you know, that's it. You know, if that's what makes you feel good, and that's what gives you pleasure, you know, it's definitely, as long as it's not causing harm to someone else, then that is sex positivity. It's sex positivity to you is just saying, well, I want to learn more. You know, I might not necessarily be a physical person. I don't, you know, like to touch, or I don't like to, you know, be, you know, show skin. Okay. Cause I think people I've been seeing that a lot, you know, that sex positive is all about just showing skin and, you know, being free and naked. I'm like, that is a part of it, but that's not everybody, you know. Sex positivity could literally be you just saying that I am a sexual being and I'm comfortable with talking about sex with, you know, these particular kind of people that I want to talk about sex with, you know, but having that openness, you know. So yeah, I think that it definitely has to be an openness and willingness to look further and look deeper, and also to not project your ideas about sex onto somebody else. For me, that's sex positive, you know, because there's a lot of people that are modest, that, you know, that are waiting, you know, there are, you know, for whatever reason, you know, they might not be as out there with their sexuality or their sensuality, but projecting those views onto other people definitely is not sex positive, you know. So, you know, so yeah, I think that in just knowing that there is a lot of different ways to show up in a space, and but there is a lot of ways that you could show up in a space that might be harmful to others. And I think when you do start projecting your views onto other people, even if you're the liberated and out there one, you know, if you're projecting your views about what sex positivity is onto somebody else that might be a little bit more modest, then that can also be sex negative. But yeah, definitely. So consent and you having the willingness to explore further, and, you know, educate yourself more about what sex means and all of the various things that comes with it, you know, like sexual assault, like street harassment, like, you know, stealthing, things of that nature. And then just not projecting your views onto other people and being receptive to something new, a new perspective is sex positivity for me. Yeah.
Well, I love that. Like, that encompasses so much. But I love that it had, like, you hit on so many different pieces, because it's such a broad, I think it's such a broad thing that it's important to kind of touch on. Like, there's a variety of things that can relate to sex positivity. And it's not just one piece, because people's comfort and levels of what is looked at as very positive for them can be very different.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I love that definition, and how not at one point in that definition did you talk about sexual behavior. So like the act of sex being a part of sex positivity, as, you know, but really kind of what it means for you and what feels good for you personally, not the act of partnered sex, you know, or even just like the act of the behavior of sex. So
right. Yeah. Because there's a lot of people that are very sexually active and very free and comfortable with having sex that necessarily aren't, that I wouldn't consider sex positive, because it is subjective. I like that you, I said that, Erica, you know, but that I would consider sex positive, because I feel like if sex is being used as to fill a void of something, you know, that some trauma that you might be going through, then for me, that's not sex positive, you know, because at some point it's not going to be enough, you know, and that is how sex addictions can form, you know, just like, you know, alcoholism or any other addiction with a substance. Like, sex is also a substance and a drug, and it can be. So I think, you know, for me, that could be that's definitely sex negative in a way. So yeah, I think it's more of a mindset thing than necessarily the action, right? Even though there are actions that can be attached to sex positivity, and that depends on the individual. And I think all of it is valid. It's an and both for me, you know what I mean? And not a either or.
For sure.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. That's awesome to bring that to the attention of folks. You know, it is the and but. It doesn't have to be the either or.
So I have a question. So while we're all quarantined, what's some advice that you give to those looking to still have virtual intimacy or solo sex? Because I know, again, you know, we're talking about safety. And I love that you mentioned that, you know, it can be a healthy thing that's not necessarily related to being partnered. And, you know, right now with, you know, there's some people who are truly in isolation. What's some advice that you might give?
Yeah, masturbation. Woo, woo, woo. Yeah. So, that's been definitely keeping me afloat. And it always has. I haven't had partner sex in a year, 3 months, and 4 weeks, but who's counting?
Right.
You know?
Not counting at all.
So at all. Right? And it is something that I do miss dearly.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's not something that I have to have because I do pleasure myself so well, and I'm just so content in other areas of my life, my career, my friends, that is not so daunting for me, whereas it used to be before when I did, you know, didn't have a partner for a long periods of time,
Mm-hmm.
and I would go without sex. It would just feel so excruciating.
Mm-hmm.
But I think because I have become so sex positive in my own way that I don't look at not having a partner as, you know, not being sexually active. You know, I think a lot of people think that if they're not in a relationship or they don't have a partner, then that means that they're not that they can't be sexually active, that they don't have pleasure, you know, that they're in a dry spell, quote unquote. I hear that term a lot. And I think if you feel that way, then that's fine. But I think I would just encourage people to shift their perspective when they speak about sex in that way, you know, because I'm like, well, then what if you never get a partner? Like that's a possibility, especially now with you know, being in the Ponderosa, you know, you might not have a partner for a while. So it's like, are you going to just continue to harp on the fact that you don't have a partner, or are you going to try to do something about it and masturbate? And I think a lot of the reason why people don't is because there's this aversion to masturbation because we live in a sex negative and rape culture, because, you know, it's considered nasty or it's considered weird or corny to like pleasure yourself, you know. And I know a lot of Black women specifically that just cannot stand masturbation. Like it grows. I've literally seen Black women like just be mortified, like turn their face up, look so disgusted when I bring up masturbation.
It's so interesting that it has been normalized for someone else to have that kind of access to your body, but it's almost been like you said, kind of taboo to have access to your own body. Like it's yours.
It's your body.
It's yours.
Yeah. That's why. And even some men that I've even met that have had this aversion with masturbation and tasting themselves. Like I found that to be so weird. Like when I ask questions like that to adults, when I do certain adult content, and even in certain talks that I've had and in discussions I've had with adults, you know, where I'll ask the question, like, what do you taste like? You know, that is a part of sex. I feel like it's a spiritual thing. It's also like a physical attribute that is very important to know with the taste, you know, because that can make or break a sexual experience. Let me tell you,
Okay.
you know, and just the looks that I get, like you would think I had 3 heads, like I said something really wild. I'm like, that's a really basic question, you know, like, and so that has even been something. I'm like, well, how somebody else gonna know that you taste good if you don't know if you taste good? And good is also, I don't even know if I like that word,
right?
But that's
it's relative.
Also subjective. You know, it's definitely relative. But I think it's just important to like have that relationship with yourself, and I always think about partner sex being the hierarchy, you know, like the top of the food chain. You know, it's great, but it's not it's not, it's not the end of the world if you don't have it, and I think I want more people to just realize that, especially in this pandemic. Like, you have to like come to grips with you may be going without for a while. And I've even had to come to grips like, dang, it might be a minute longer, even like I'm going a whole year, and I am dating. And of course, and I think there is ways to have new partners, even with, the dangers and the risks of it. There's precautions that you can take to, have a partner. So that's like the bright side of it. We have testing for COVID. You have the quarantine period that you can, quarantine. And of course we have the, vaccine coming out now for those who are taking it. So that's a thing that to look forward to say, there is a possibility that I can have a partner at some point. But, it's also really good to like think about what if you can't, so you still want to have that sexual pleasure. You still want to get those endorphins going, when you have an orgasm, you still want to, have that release. And I think that's important for sure to keep you together. It keeps me sane. I'm telling you, it keeps me from catching a charge most of the time. So I'm going to continue that. But I think self dates too, like not just even masturbation, but self dates kind of can help during this time too, taking yourself out on dates, doing virtual things with partners or virtual things with friends, that might kind of get that going, whether it's like a game, maybe a sex game that you want to play that kind of keep that energy up. Or if you do have a partner, maybe some mutual masturbation on a FaceTime, or like a little striptease, sexy dance, or sexy dancing in the mirror with yourself, music. So all of those things have, can definitely help for sure.
I love that you made the distinction between sex positivity does not automatically equate partnered sex. Because I think, when we talk about sex, oftentimes our immediate thought is partnered sex, is, sex with other people. So I love that you made the distinction that sex positivity is not only for sex with other people. And I think to Erica's point around what is allowed or acceptable when it comes to masturbation, I think it goes back to what you said earlier about the Puritan culture and the modesty culture, where sex was a purpose. You have sex to have children. So why would you touch yourself? Why would you pleasure yourself? I actually remember a sermon that my mom's pastor preached about unholy sex, and basically where he said any sex that did not lead to procreation was outside of the will of God. So he said oral sex, anal sex, any sex that could not lead to procreation was not in the will of God. And he didn't get a lot of amens in that sermon. He even said,
cast me to hell. Okay. Cast me down.
Okay. I wonder how he reconciles that with the scripture that says the marital bed is undefiled.
Yeah.
Well, he did. He talked about that because he said, I know what y'all going to say. Y'all going to pull out this scripture. And but he connected it to another scripture that talked about what, I don't know. But the thing with scriptures, you can find a scripture to justify anything. Because I've heard pastors preach differently around masturbation. I've heard one pastor say, if it's keeping you from fornicating, do it. And I've heard others say, nope, because it's going to lead you down the road to fornicate, so don't do it. And they both had scripture to back up what they were saying. So,
but I think it speaks a lot to like what we were talking about before around sex and shame, and how when you have shame wrapped up around something, right? So when you get messages of shame around sex, and then you get this other message that says sex can be pleasurable, those two things don't equate. Like, how can I be pleasured and be ashamed of it, right? And so it's in that space of like being able to pleasure yourself or find sex pleasurable. It helps to decrease that shame that comes along with it of like, no, I feel pleasure when I experience this or when I do this. And so it just really speaks towards or decreases that amount of shame that you can carry when it comes to solo sex, when it comes to some of the things you were talking about, Tamika.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that you brought that sermon up, April, because I'm not Christian and I don't ascribe to any religion. So for me, it is almost baffling. But I grew up Christian. I grew up holiness at that. So, and those y'all who know
Oh,
about
wow.
holiness,
Yeah.
they
Very
strict,
strict.
That's a 2.5 hour day. It might be turning to 6-7 hours, that's
Yes.
a Sunday you gotta have some stamina. But yeah. So when I do hear religion brought up and its impact on sex, it's always funny to me because I can remember a lot of moments in my childhood and even in my early adult life when I was still Christian and still in the church, that it's wild to watch how powerful that influence is on people's individual lives, and like they're taking these messages into their bedrooms and they're taking them into their workspaces. And that just goes to show just how powerful words are and how powerful conditioning is, and that you really have to be careful with the platform that you have, and that's also part of sex positivity, being responsible with your platform and giving, accurate information about things and trying to the best of your ability to have an objective view about things, even if you don't personally agree with them. And I think that's something that people in general just have to master. Like, I can personally disagree with something and still give accurate information about it, or try my best, my ability to give objective view if there is one. Like, it's certain stuff that I can see the objective view in, and even if I don't really rock with it, if I know that it's not harmful, if it might just necessarily not be my thing, I can still at least provide some sort of opinion about it that is well informed, you know what I mean, and healthy for those who may be with it that I care about, because I want them to have all the options. I don't want them to just have my option or my opinion about it. I want to provide them with all of the opinions and all the options that exist around that topic so they can make the decision for themselves. It's like, because that is how we thrive, is by having choice. But because we live in this society, we don't think that having choice is thriving. We think that, you adopting a choice of somebody else is, because we think we know what's best for other people. So I love that you brought that up.
This, made me think, going into the mental health realm of all of this is, as we were talking about, spiritual messages that we may have gotten, or just any kind of message that we have gotten that we've internalized and made that, how we then behave around sex, and thinking about what is the diagnosis? Is it vaginismus, where women actually have pain? And I have, in speaking with different people and friends, and have noticed that there's a large connection to people who have had a very strong, like, Christian, upbringing around being taught, you don't have sex until you are married. And then maybe they've adopted that, they haven't done it. And then the expectation that day I say I do switches something off in your brain and tells your body, now sex is good, go ahead and do that. But our brain is very powerful and conditioning is very real. And if we've been conditioned for 20, 30 plus years of sex is bad, you don't do this, how do we expect people to then just automatically flip a switch and be able to engage and see something that we've been told was wrong or bad, and now to see it in a positive light, and just how contradictory that is, and just how important it is. It goes back to that sex positive language and teaching and learning and training, and how important it is, regardless of spiritual beliefs, anything. Like, if we took that off the table and look at how it impacts you on a mental health level, I think that to me, that makes it so important to kind of shift these conversations and start talking to people, really, because it's going to impact, just like you said, Tamika, it impacts your health. Sexual health is health. It's all related.
That's good. Erica, that reminded me of how people think certain life milestones is going to shift their mindset. Like, I remember talking to a lot of my male friends who were uh indiscriminate in their sexual activities. I'll just say it like that.
That's a good way to put it.
And would be like, yeah, you know, when I get married, then I'm going to, you know, behave differently. I'm not going to do this when I get married or when I hit a certain age. And I was just like, do you know how habits work and how the brain works? Like, there's
Right.
not a switch that you know, that you can turn on and off, that, you know, your whole life this is how you have behaved in this area, and then all of a sudden you think you just stop. In the same way, if you have had this very closed-minded attitude around sex all your life, and only this in marriage, and then you think on your wedding night that is just going to, now you're going to turn into, you know, red light diaries, red light confessions. What was that show? Red Shoe Diaries.
Shoe Diaries.
Red Shoe
Yeah.
Diaries.
So yeah, and I've actually talked with a friend of mine who kind of grew up in the church, and, you know, was a virgin until marriage, and she shared that she had to work through a lot of those hang-ups around sex because there was a mental block there. So yeah.
That's so real. And
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think that's it's so critical, because I think, especially if you aren't doing certain things to prepare yourself for the change, for the switch, then yeah, it's going to be definitely hard. So I think, because I have some friends that, and some associates that have never had sex before, and they're waiting till they're married. And I don't think that is the issue in itself so much as the thinking about why they're doing it is the problem. It's like you're only doing it
Right.
because someone told you that this is what you have to do. And then now you've convinced yourself that that's what you want to do. And I'm like, but is it really what you want to do? I don't think that it is. I think you want to do it because you were told that you have to do it, which is really not your choice. Like, you were just conditioned to think that. And now it's hard to break the mold. And then it's like, but then it's, you're waiting and abstaining until marriage. But like, what are you doing in between the time? Like, do you even talk about sex? Are you researching stuff? Do you like, it's like, no, I just know what to do. And I'm like, no, you won't actually just know what to do. Like, I know you know where the parts go. Like, yes, penis and vagina, but I mean, it's more to it than that. And it's like, you can explore and, you know, make mistakes and do trial and error, but it's like, why? It's so many mistakes that you can avoid, and so much awkwardness that you can avoid if you just talk about it and just look some stuff up and practice, you know, or, you know, like, I just feel like it's why I think you're putting your body and your mind through so much more stress than what you have to do. You know, it's like, if you do want to abstain, that's fine. But I think that just completely not even talking about it, not listening to other people's stories, not even like getting a confidence about yourself. Like, I know some people don't even look at themselves naked. They don't even know what they fully look like naked at all. You know, like, do you even look at your vagina? Like, have you seen what's down there? Like, no. I'm like, well, how he gonna know what to do if you don't know what to do? Like, do you even know what you like sexually? Like, he can't just ram it in there. Like, you can
For
get
sure.
hurt. Like, this some days can get fucked up if you go ramming it in there.
Yeah.
So, like, all of these things is so important to know. And I'm like, if you're just not doing any kind of introspection or any kind of exploring sexually at all, I think that can be very dangerous, honestly. Like, that can be very, very problematic. So, and I'm like, you don't want bad sex. Like, who wants that? I don't think anybody wants bad sex. And I'm like, I don't care what people say. Like, ain't no man on the world gonna be able to tell you what you like or do what you like just off rip. Like, you know, like,
Automatically. That's
like,
only in
it's
TV.
been a few that can almost get it right, you know, without you telling them, you know, but we know those are rare. But even those, you know, that can just touch your body in a way or please you in a way without you saying much, it's not going to be exactly to your liking, because that person does not know you, even if they are experienced. Like, even if your partner is very experienced, you know, like, they just don't know your body. And I feel like if you don't know your body, you can't teach, you know, and I feel like it's just so much, like, I would have so much anxiety if I had waited to marriage for sex and then like knew nothing. But I'm a Scorpio. I have to feel like some level of control I have to have with situations. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's such a like it's so difficult to, like you said, if you don't know what's pleasurable for you, and then that expectation that you have of your partner, of pleasuring you when you don't even know what's pleasurable, like it just leads to disappointment in relationships that doesn't necessarily have to be there. If you can communicate, this is what I enjoy, this is pleasurable for me, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that.
Yeah,
and I think
I was just about to say that, and I said that puts a whole lot of stress on your partner too. And sex can really be a deal breaker for a relationship, and it can put a strain on relationships. You know, especially because I feel like for Black women, especially, we have not been taught to. Well, I think that we get shy and sometimes about being vocal because we've been demonized so much for being vocal. You get called angry, you get called a bitch, you get called aggressive. So when it comes, a whore, a slut, all those things, which are words obviously that I gladly reclaim at this point in life. But it's still so when we are in the bedroom, or when we are with male partners specifically, we have that like submissive attitude kind of beat into our brains. And so we're not vocal a lot to say that this is what I don't like. So I like that you said that, Shari, about being disappointed, because it's like we typically are, like there's studies like only about 62% of women that have sex with men orgasm. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's pretty sad. There's a huge gap,
orgasm gap.
Like less than that.
Yeah.
And so like I feel like it's going to have a lot of disappointment that's very unnecessary if you have a conversation. And it's a lot of strain that you can be put there because you're going to be unhappy. You're not going to be fulfilled, but then you're also not going to say anything, and you just expect this person to just know what to do. And I'm like, nah, that's not the case, because most of the time, they don't be knowing what they're doing. Men do not be knowing what they're doing. They are very clueless when it comes to sex and the anatomy altogether, right? So, yeah.
And we don't have that expectation in any other area of our life that people are going to come in knowing like exactly what we like. Like if we go to a restaurant, we may have to tell, the waitress, hey, can you ask the cook to put X, Y, and Z on the side, or leave off the onions because I don't like we, in every aspect of our life, we tell people what we want, but when it comes to sex, it's this expectation that your partner is supposed to automatically know. But it all goes back to us not knowing what we want and just having really bad information out there. Like a lot of people learn about sex from porn, and they forget that that's acting. Like I remember, this was years ago, Mr. Marcus was giving like dating and sex advice. And I was like, you're an actor. Like your partners are paid to act like they are enjoying. That does not mean that you are actually like this. It's not the same, sir. Like it's not real. And not to say that, that sex workers are not talented, but it's not, like, especially when it comes to porn, like that's a whole different type, especially male-centered porn. Like it's very rarely pleasure-based. It's all about the angle and what they think men want to see. So, which is often not pleasurable for the woman on the other side when it is straight porn. So I think when you tie all of that together, that a lot of our early information, one, we're not getting it, then we're seeking or looking at porn for tips, and also not being able to say, maybe I don't like the jackrabbit style.
Right. Maybe I can't breathe if I'm upside down. Like,
and
I'm dizzy. What the hell?
You're not even on the clit. You're nowhere near it. Like, come on. It's a clip. It is a clip-demic out here in these streets. It's definitely a clip-demic, and I don't like that. It's upsetting me and my ancestors. I don't like that. I like that you brought that up, though, April, about not even having, the tools to know what you like. So then you do have these experiences. And that's like times two for queer folks, you know what I'm saying? Like not knowing what to do because even they can't even learn. Like we haven't even been able to learn from porn for a long time because like,
for sure.
Queer porn is like still kind of fairly recent if you think about how long porn has been a thing, especially in mainstream. So it's like a lot of like my teens who are LGBTQ plus, they will be honest with me and say, Miss Tamka, I tried to, learn stuff about sex from porn, but it was hard because I don't like wee-wees. And I was like, I understand. In my mind,
Right.
I'm like,
It's still very male centered. It was still
exactly.
very
And in
male
my mind,
centered.
I'm like, if I wanted to be like, I feel you, child. I'm discouraged that I like it myself, but thankfully I have options because I'm pansexual. Because they're nasty sometimes. Of course I couldn't say that, but it's just.
Let me tell you how I know sexuality is not a choice.
Exactly. Because I would have not chosen this life. Like, why? You made me to like men? That is just horrible. It's the ghettoest thing ever.
I said I'm about to go to conversion therapy and see if it works the opposite way.
The opposite. Flip it and reverse it.
I'm about to go to one of these Christian camps.
Because dealing with these dudes, honey, oh Lord.
Honey.
Gotta be another option.
It must be.
That is so true. That's so true.
Let's be hardwired.
Okay. Well, this was a great topic. This was great to talk about, and we really wanted to choose the month of February to talk about just different aspects of love, of sex, of just positivity, and all of those things that come along with the things that we think about when we hit that month of February, especially when people are like, oh, it's the month of love. Okay, well, what does all that even mean? And so this was something we certainly wanted to bring and to start to talk about, just like sex positivity and what that means, and just sexual identity and all of those different things. And so, definitely a great topic. Thank you so much, Tamika, for popping in and chatting with us today. Before we head out, or before you head out, tell the people where they can find you. Give them some hints on how to follow you after you drop some great knowledge.
Yes, well, thank you so much. I appreciate y'all for having me. Had a blast. I could talk about this all day long, so we'll definitely have to do it again.
Yes.
I love it. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Yase __ LLC. So that's YASE 2 _ LLC on Facebook and Instagram. And my website is YaseLLC.org. So you can find me there. And that's for youth sex ed stuff. And I'm also available for booking for workshops. I do consultations with other professionals that work with youth that want to incorporate sex ed talks, that want to figure out how to be a better, I don't want to say advocate, because advocate is a person that you're responsible for, but I would say how to be a better contributor and a better mentor, maybe, so to speak. I don't know if mentor is a good word, but contributor for sure, for teens that, want to have a better knowledge base about sex and how to do it in a way that is decolonized, that's very specific to Black teens and non-Black teens of color, LGBTQ plus teens, and ways to do that. So and I also do parent sessions. So we have questions about your teens and what they may be going through, how to notice certain signs, and whether that is signs of interest of sex or signs of maybe sexual abuse, even, because that can be kind of, those two things can sometimes overlap. Or just how to have a conversation with your teen if they're coming out, what does that look like? So I'm available for all those things, all on my website. You can definitely book me there. And for all sex ed and sex content related to adults, you can follow me on Instagram at Sexformation Goddess. So affirmation, but replace the A with sex and goddess, Sexformation Goddess. Or you can type in Tamika Staley. I should pop up too. So that's how you can find me. And if you want to book me for poetry, you can do that too at Talks with Tamika on Instagram for all poetry related things. Yes.
Renaissance woman.
She's doing a lot of things, folks.
Twitter too. I forgot about Twitter. Sexformation Goddess on Twitter as well. Sexformation Goddess on Twitter.
Nice. And we'll link all of those things in the show notes so we can make sure that you guys can have access and find Tamika for all things related to positive sex and, just like you said, Renaissance woman.
I love that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we are about to go into our next segment of the show, which is to send one your love. And of course, this is the month of all things love. So we definitely want to take the time to identify a person, a situation, whatever it may be that has made you feel love. And you just want to acknowledge that. So, with that being said, is there anyone who would like to go first?
I'll jump in for the first time ever. So
Awesome.
I want to send my love to Erica, April, Tiffany, Jolena, and Karina. My girl tribe. I had some foolishness happening here lately. And literally, I sent out a group message and was like, y'all, this is what's going on. And every single one of them just popped up like, what do you need? Like, no questions asked. What do you need? Call me, talk to me. And so I think, especially when we're in this space of like just love and like I say, Black girlfriends matter, because we get so many representations that Black women can't be friends and they can't be real with one another. And I got a tribe like no other. So I want to send my love to y'all. I appreciate you. And just the ways in which you show up for me every time when I need. So that's where I want to send my love. Thank y'all. I love you.
Yes, Black women friendship is so beautiful. I love it. Okay, let's see. Well, maybe I'll go. Let's see. I don't know. I want to send my love to, I don't know. I guess I'll just send my love to my family. Just because, I think everybody was, hopeful that 2021 was going to look a little better than 2020. And so far it seems like business as usual. And it's continuing to get harder and harder to be away from family. And I just kind of noticed that we've just kind of kicked it up a notch in just kind of reaching out to one another, trying, different ways to connect to one another, FaceTiming more, calling more, texting more, because as the time goes on, it gets hard to not see and embrace your family and things like that. So I want to send my love to them just, for, our continued efforts to show one another that we care, that we're here, and that we love each other. So love you guys. And just hoping to be able to hug you all, soon.
Oh, all right. It's my turn. I would like to send my love. I'll continue with the girlfriends theme. Two separate ones. To my chapterless sorors. That was a name we gave ourselves because we had all ended up in Birmingham shortly after graduating, and we had to find a like we were all from all these different chapters and in the same city, and was trying to find an alumni chapter to join, so we just would call ourselves the chapterless sorors. But they've been for over 10 years at this point. And we gathered together because one of our girlfriends had experienced some foolishness and we had to do a video call. And even on that video call, just affirming that I received on that call in an area that I really needed and wasn't expecting to receive it. So it was amazing to get that push and just like, you know what, I couldn't fail if I tried because there are too many people around me who would not allow it. And I also would like to send my love to Shari. And reminding her of who she is and, what she is, who she is, and whose she is.
Hallelujah.
Amen.
Amen. Everybody ain't worthy. And sometimes we get those reminders that everybody ain't worthy. And that has no bearing on how dope you are ever.
That's real. That's so real. That. Yeah. Thank you, girl. That's real.
Yes. Awesome.
Well, as we wrap up, thank y'all for listening. I think today was a amazing episode. So definitely, if you get a little bit of free time or not, check out Tamika Staley on a lot of the links that you will see in our show notes. As always, if you are looking for Three Psychs and a Mic, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, all of the social media outlets. If you'd like to email us, if you've got a question or a topic request, you can hit us up, slide in those DMs, or you can email us at threepsychsandamic@gmail.com. As you're listening, like, recommend, and share, subscribe, tell a friend and tell a friend about us, because we are only as great as you say we are. And with that, we are going to see y'all in 2 weeks. Holla.
Bye.
Bye.